We're here with Congressman Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, who is the chairman of the House Budget Committee, and you had a pretty historic week.
Yeah, we
passed,
did.
You passed the what we call the Ryan budget.
The House budget, I like to call it.
We prefer to call it the Ryan budget, but it was 228, I think, to
191. Yeah, good vote count.
You had 10 Republicans who voted no, 3 of whom, interestingly enough, said you didn't go far enough.
Hey, look, I love that. That's fine with me. Having people try to pull us to the right is great.
Well, respond to that criticism, though, that you don't get to a balanced budget for 10 years.
It's because of the CBO. I and only I, the Budget Committee, has to use what we call the CBO official baseline to measure our budget. Heritage Foundation, Senator Toomey, nobody else has to use this baseline to measure our budget.
I got it.
And so that baseline assumes a massive tax increase comes in June, we never get the debt paid off, and the economy is always slow.
I got it.
And I have to use that measurement to measure my budget. Now, we released in the Budget Committee what we call our alternative growth scenario, which says if the economy grows at a normal pace because of our good economic policies, then we balance the budget within 10 years. But because I had to use this baseline from the CBO, which is static, and it doesn't reflect reality, I unfortunately have to measure myself that way. But if you measure our budget under what any realistic economist would think will actually occur as a result of our budget, then we balance very quickly. And so it's static versus dynamic is kind of how this works.
Now, you have really put forward in this budget, I think, more than the last budget.
Yeah, it's a tougher budget. It cuts more. It has $1 trillion in lower spending and deficits.
But you've also got deeper tax cuts, right?
Yeah, we do.
So you take the corporate rate to 25, and then what do you do on the personal side?
Two tax brackets, 10% and a 25%. So 10% for low and middle income earners and 25% for higher income earners. And so we collapse all 6 tax brackets into those 2. And we get rid of tax shelters and loopholes so we can lower everybody's tax rates.
Now, another thing,
pro-growth. We think that's going to create jobs and economic growth, but we don't assume that in our baseline because CBO doesn't do that.
Right.
And that's
but
one of the reasons.
The fact is, you're arguing that if we did that, as Reagan did and as Bush did
exactly.
after the 2001 recession, we would have growth, job creation, and the deficit would close. Last question. I thought it was interesting, and I want to applaud you for it, by the way, that you didn't take the easy way out and count the sequestration on the Pentagon budget.
Right.
You took that roughly $600 billion and you cut elsewhere.
Yeah.
Why did you do that, and why should our members be concerned about these draconian cuts in our defense spending that are coming?
If you take the Obama budget and the sequester, it's about $1 trillion cut to defense. It literally completely hollows out our defense and makes us extremely weak. I would argue that the Obama budget itself, without the sequester, hollows out our defense. So we think, number one, the first priority and responsibility of the federal government is national defense. And what they're doing is the only cuts that President Obama is willing to specify is in the Pentagon because he's increasing domestic spending. He's increasing government agency spending. He's increasing all the spending of these government agencies with another round of stimulus that he's calling for. So he has a $1.5 trillion spending increase for stimulus and domestic spending and a $500 billion cut in defense. We're saying cut domestic spending. And yes, take some money out of the Pentagon, but don't hollow it out. And so we take $300 billion out of the Pentagon budget over the next 10 years, and we think that is an appropriate level to get savings, to have more efficiencies, but not hollow out our defense, not shortchange our troops, and to be able to get the kind of technology we need, but we don't want to hollow it out. So we are showing how we can keep the primary responsibility intact, and we're showing specifically what spending cuts we will have to replace those cuts to defense. And we're actually going to pass that bill, cutting domestic, mandatory entitlement programs. We're going to do a lot of things just this spring. So in May, I'm going to be bringing a big spending cut bill. Over 10 years, we'll cut $261 billion to pay for replacing $78 billion of cuts. So for just the first year. So we're going to overcut where government grew so much. You got to remember, under Obama, base spending for domestic government agencies grew up 24%. When you throw stimulus in there, he grew spending by 84%. So we got to cut this stuff back.
Yeah.
And what Obama's trying to do is spend even more of that.
Wow.
So we got to cut that back. And
so it was 24%, and with the stimulus it was what?
84%
wow.
on domestic government agencies. And so to pay for doing even more of that, he wants to cut defense. We're saying cut all those increases back and not hollow out defense, and that's basically our priorities.
All right. You took a big step this week. You endorsed Governor Romney, and you're going to be introducing him here in just a minute. Tell our members, who are spread out across the field, some for Rick, some for Santorum, some for Romney, some for Paul, why you chose to make that
Well, I know all of them well. I'm friends with them. I served with Rick for years. I've known Newt for 15 or 20 years, probably as long as I've known you. I think Mitt Romney's the guy who can best win, and I think he's the guy who can best deliver the reforms we need. I've spent a lot of time with Mitt Romney lately, going through the budget, going through the kinds of reforms that we're going to have to put in place in 2013, and I believe he's committed to this. I believe he's committed to doing what's right to get our country back on track, and I believe he has the best chance of defeating Barack Obama in the fall. And so I just think, because Wisconsin, we voted Tuesday, I think as conservatives it's time to coalesce, because I believe it's counterproductive to drag this thing out into the summer, let alone August, when Obama's out there trying to raise $1 billion to run against us. So I just think the primary has been healthy. I think they've made Romney a better candidate, but I think we're getting to the counterproductive stages of the primary. If we can keep dragging this thing out, it's going to be to the detriment of the real goal, which is to defeat Barack Obama in the fall.
Okay, Congressman Paul Ryan, a conservative here. Thanks for being here.
You bet, Ron. Appreciate it.